Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Agency Operators Podcast. My name is Pasha. Today I'm joined by Elizabeth Greene of Jungler. How are you, Elizabeth?
I am doing good. I'm doing really good.
Awesome. We went a little over. We were supposed to
I
start a little,
know. I
but we
know.
got into chit
It's my
chatting, and
fault.
no, it's fun. It's fun. It's we are just talking about 2025 and how things are going. Obviously, there's a lot of turbulence going on in the world, but also in business because fourth quarter just ended and lots of people are trying to fulfill New Year's resolutions and they have that electricity. So it's
hmm
both good and stimulating, sometimes overstimulating, right?
Yeah, yeah. No, I definitely feel that. It feels like a million things to do as always. What is the thing that actually matters? Because we all have limited time.
That's right. How did you guys do for 2024 fourth quarter?
We did good. We did good. Fourth quarter is always pretty stellar for our brands. We also have a lot of like giftable products, which is great. Some of our products, there are some brands that we have that historically fourth quarter is like one of their lowest quarters. That tends to be like anything that's like scientific equipment. It's cold, so anything that you put outdoors is like, yeah, no one's really thinking about going outside if you're sort of a little bit more north. So here in Florida, it's still too cold to swim or do anything crazy like summer, but we're still outside more than probably people who are drowning in snow right now.
Oh yeah, I got some snow outside, but now the sun is shining and it's extremely bright. So that's why I have all this sun in my face. But anyhow, um, yeah, I've been kind of discussing with the team and just with a lot of people in the industry, what is the I guess consensus or just the thought around all of these deals that Amazon's putting out. Because last year we're seeing extended deal times, and I
hmm
don't know if it's a good thing or not. So, we had like what was it, 12 days for Cyber Week, right? It was just like it just didn't end. Half the month was a deal time, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
then we
yeah,
had then before that, I can't remember exactly the months that it was, but we had like two series of Prime days, which are not days anymore; they're multiple days. And
yes,
then what we see is just like all of this like kind of dip. Then you have lots of selling at a discount, and then you have a
hmm
dip again. And then what makes it even harder in fourth quarter is, of course, the fees are higher and
hmm
CPCs are higher. You being a PPC agency know that, and you see that. I'm sure you feel that, and the clients are getting frustrated because they're selling all these products, they're moving all this inventory, but they're paying more for ads, they're paying more for
yeah,
storage and fees, and it's like all of this like low and highs kind of like and so like January comes and like the numbers look much better. Maybe
yeah.
revenues aren't as high, but profits are back and everyone's a lot more calm. So I am like kind of waiting for January to come now. You started the last couple of years. So I'm just curious, what are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, it really depends on the brand. That is a struggle. Us specifically being focused on ads is in a lot of ways like there's a bunch of fees that the brands feel like they don't have any control over. So like storage fees, selling fees, all of those additional fees. It's pretty much like, well, you got to pay them one way or the other. There's no budging. Where like I've talked to some brands and the way that they put it is like we know that we still need ads, but ads is the one lever of spend in which we can control. And these other things are completely out of our control. So there is that whole push pull dynamic between, yes, you want to make sure that you can control ad budgets, but depending on what your ad budgets are, that definitely affects top line, which then affects bottom line. So there can be that sort of, reverberating impact of being maybe too aggressive on budgets. I would say if you're doing it correctly, you're looking at it on a per product level in terms of your budgets and making sure that makes sense. Cause like there's certain, like we just onboarded a brand, and we're like, hey, look, um, there's this top product and I know that there's room in the market, but this is the cash cow. Like you'll have those accounts where it's like, I don't know, 60 to 80% of total sales volume is driven by one product. You we're working on those now to be like, all right, so how do we expand the rest of the, sales in the rest of the catalog so you can balance this out and not be live or die by one product performance, God forbid something happens. But, so for those ones, if you were to make like aggressive budget cuts, which that's where most of the budget's going, is the top product, well, then, you lose market share, or sales go down, the cash cow is no longer the cash cow. You might have good profits, but the volume on that is significantly decreased. So that's the thing. I don't think there's any like cut and dry answer to that, or right and wrong answer. I think how we've been navigating that with brands is, like, hey, let's just make sure that we're surfacing to the brands the things that we're seeing on our end. So, another client we're working with, we're like, okay, so these are the budgets that we would like to hit in January. And we just sent off an email this morning, like, okay, this is what we're seeing in terms of run rate. We're going to be, I don't know, $500 over that by the end of the month. If we continue the current run rate, we could pull back, but honestly, profitability and total A cost is great. We're seeing this impact from doing it. Are we okay to continue? Right. So it's like having, I guess that's how we're navigating it. It's like, we get access to cost of goods, we see the bottom line, we see the top line, we know what's going on with the products and how the ad performance is, and then just making sure that we're like, it's a push-pull conversation with the clients to say like, okay, this is what we're saying, here's the context of what you're requesting for ads, and then we can I think it's really navigating that on a case-by-case basis, which is a lot if you're an agency, right? And you have quite a few clients. That's where I'm really, really excited for just sort of the direction I'm taking the team internally. Is like, we're always great on communication, but I'm pushing us to like, let's up level like 2 to 3 times what we've been doing, because it's a cutthroat world out there.
That's it. Yeah. How are you guys handling the whole inventory side of things? So you were mentioning, you're driving ads, you're seeing where it's going, the run rate. So then that might mean, all right, we're getting a dip in inventory because we didn't expect to see those numbers. Yeah. So what happens on the inventory side?
That's rough. I mean, like, we have a couple of brands, like one we onboarded at, I think, just going into Q4. And like, great, we were able to we did way better in Q4 than we were hoping or anticipating. And like, unfortunately, some of the top styles ran out of product. It's as you can imagine, apparel. It's like next to impossible to keep in product. It's like always in flux. It's more a premium brand as well. So thankfully margins are good. And so it's one, just kind of communicating what that impact is to the top and bottom line. So with the best selling products going out of stock, A cost is up, total A cost is up, making sure that we're managing that well. Again, our hope is to push other styles into the sort of those top positions. So when top styles are out, we can, hopefully have positioned other products to take up the slack. We have some of the, we did work on that. So I think it's one, just kind of taking a look at the catalog, where the sales coming from, where our profits coming from, flagging any wow, 60% of the entire account is focused on these 2 styles. One, we better communicate the minute we see a potential drop in, our potential out of stock. And then 2, is there anything else in this catalog that we can start pushing with ads that has potential to gain market share so we can make up for those things? And then I guess the other thing is not only do you have the whole out of stock issue, but then you can also deal with overstocking issues. So maybe sometimes
True.
it's overstocked. And so what we've done, honestly, what we've found is that you can push advertising on low moving products if they are low moving because the conversion rates are stagnant and they just don't convert very well. Those, if you wanted to do more like a product liquidation strategy, we found that just getting more aggressive on price points is a better way to move stock. And then in tandem with that, you want to be communicating with your ad managers because they're going to be like, all of a sudden, oh my gosh, this is performing phenomenally. Let's push more ad spend. You're like, wait, profits are down because we again, that push pull, here's what we're doing with this. Can you adjust for this? You really need to make sure that communication line is on point because things move so quickly. But the other thing is, again, kind of rinsing and repeating through the catalog and saying okay, there are certain styles that don't move fast. I keep saying style because we do a lot in clothing and that's where most of the inventory issues come in. So that's the catalogs are immense. It's kind of crazy. but you also want to be going through is like, okay, so are these products not moving fast because we just have low traffic? Is it a sessions? If it's a sessions issue and conversion rates are strong and you can check those versus category averages, then it's like, well, why would we not test these things anymore? So we've done some interesting tests. And we have a couple strategies we use that like most ad agencies will talk about like, okay, so we need to like touch pushing traffic to these products, right? Which typically comes at a higher ad spend because it's a test, a cost is typically a little high. And if you did that, there's another brand we're working with, like there's like 60 something products across the entire catalog. Top product makes up about, I want to say it's like 32% of total sales. The next product's making up about 20%, and then the other ones it's like 8, 6. It's really low. And so it's like, well, there's 60 products here, right? And most of them, all of the conversion rates are super strong. So like the products are well positioned, but what, you're gonna like do aggressive tests on 50 products?
Of course.
Expensive really fast. And
Yeah.
so there's a couple strategies. One that we're using is leveraging like auto campaigns. You've heard of catch-all autos.
Mhm.
So we call it almost kind of like a low impact pre-step to testing. So you can like launch, say, like a catch-all auto. You want to eliminate the best sellers because budget's going to naturally just go to there. But you can just put all of those slow moving products in there and then use that data feedback from that auto campaign to say, okay, this is our next logical test. We did that with one of our accounts on, I think it was November, December, we ran those, and then we were able to flag some additional products to invest more in. And we've moved on to that further. And like the products are doing great and growing. So that gives you good data signals when you're looking at like a really large catalog and you're like, I don't know, like, where do I put my ad spend? We just had been testing, and then we just recently shared the strategy with the rest of the team as well because it's working so well and the accounts we're testing it in. We've actually been testing, gosh, I'm trying to remember the targeting because it's so new. The related to product, the new targeting instead of sponsored product ads.
Mhm.
A lot of people had tested that. We initially had tested and be like, well, this is crap, so we're not using it. But actually what we found is that for slow moving products, now you need to be careful with the bid and start these really low. But if you're trying to like scrape potential keywords to retarget to like really like, again, it's kind of like that old school, really like low cost, dip your toe in launch strategy, where instead of like doing aggressive high ad spend, you're kind of like, all right, let's launch a low bid, let's see what works, kind of like moving up to a manual.
Mhm.
Downside on that, of course, is things move slower. Upside is like less ad and cost investment. So it's like when we have low moving products, they're not really doing much anyways. You might as well do that. And so those strategies have worked really well. Again, for like those low moving products where you're like, I don't really know what converts well. I'm a little bit hesitant to run those really aggressive, like sort of more classic launch strategy tests because, again, ad spend, cost, performance. I don't want to hurt the bottom line, but I still want to like try and grow the catalog. So those are kind of like good like pre-steps that, again, we've sort of been really digging into end of Q4 going into Q1, and we're seeing some great results to then again get a little bit more aggressive and intentional with the ad strategy.
Amazing. So with that being said, my mind kind of goes towards, all right, Amazon's rolling out all these updates and giving us new stuff, but obviously we know that the AI is coming. How does that make an impact on ads is always my question. And how do I kind of build a moat for our agency, our clients, and just kind of stay on top of what is to come, what is happening already? There's been a couple ways that we've been looking at that, starting with content. Just making sure that all of the fields in the back end are filled out. We are even in the process right now. We kind of shared some of it, but we're continuing the development. We're doing like a bot that you can get a couple of reports from Amazon. You can get the back end of the listing information. You can scrape that parameter, all those parameters, and then get some Helium 10 data or Jungle Scout or whatever, and just sort of like throw it into this GPT that'll crunch everything together and give you a lot of your valid values for the back end, and just put all that data there. So you're essentially giving more information, not necessarily to a customer because it's a back end fill out,
Mhm.
but feeding the system with actually more information about what the product is, potentially looking at reviews too. Um, from the content side, that's kind of how we're looking at it. But I'm just always like, all right, well, that's fine. That's like intent-based search and maybe optimizing for that. But what about the ads? How, like, is Amazon just going to eventually, like, this is becoming so systemic, and there's lots of like nice guardrails on the Amazon side that they provide for us. So eventually, like it'll just get easier and easier. Sort of like how Google can
Yeah.
sort of optimize better than a person at this point because they have so much
Mhm.
data and they have so much efficiency within their own algorithm. I see Amazon getting that way too. I know they're starting to, I saw this new thing where they're starting to like sell their ad tech somewhere and all of that. So,
Yeah. I'm really interested. So I think long term AI is going to be insanely beneficial to us, and I would love to hear what you're doing on the content side. If I could pick your brain offline, because that sounds insanely intriguing. Um, from an ads perspective, I think there's a couple ways. One, it's like how are we using it just ourselves, like internally for AI, and then maybe what is Amazon shifting towards from like their ad, just their ad algorithm perspective, or with the new releases and things that they're doing. I don't know which one to tackle first. Maybe Amazon would, like, in their algorithm and what they're pushing towards, maybe the more interesting one to tackle first. I do definitely think that that's where they want to be in terms of like helping you manage things. I know that there's a bunch of stuff popping up in like, hey, help us optimize. Like even a while back, there was like an optimize for ROAS settings in the bid settings.
right.
Now we tested that. Between you and me, it's not great. I don't necessarily think it's because. So there's some like costs of the optimized for ROAS and sponsored product ads. There's a now in sponsored brand ads. I just checked it this morning, and also in sponsored display ads. It's like an optimized for like a CPC, or if you have a VCPM, like optimized for this amount. So like I want you to optimize for like $1 CPC or something in my ads, which in theory is like fantastic. But what we've found is that I don't think it's the algorithm is doing a good job to sort of, I think polls are trying to figure out, okay, so can we get them good traffic for this? The problem is actually, even if you go into the sponsored product ads and you select like the optimized for ROAS, what you'll find is if you put a much lower ROAS than what it's currently like performing at, it will say, or higher ROAS, excuse me, sorry, opposite. If you put a much higher ROAS than what it is like currently performing at, it'll say, hey, you're probably going to hurt your sales if you do that.
Yeah.
So like there's this whole dynamic between like what does the market require and what do I want to allow for in terms of what I'm paying for. And it's really like there's this innate tension, which makes Amazon, that's why it's so difficult, right? I've said this many times before. I'm like, if you want the CPC you need to hit your targets, ROAS, ACoS, whatever it may be, I can give you the math. I can say, well, if this number is this number is this is what. The problem is if that calculation says you need 32-cent bid, is Amazon going to give you impressions for that? On a lot of top keywords, probably not. And so like that's where like really the strategic management and the optimization comes into. So what we're doing internally on a consistent basis with because we use internal tech for our optimizations, we're constantly checking, okay, so this is what the system outputs that we should be doing, and then this is what I as a expert account manager know like is priority. So we're constantly flagging and then feeding back into the system of, okay, so these are our things that are priority. These are our things that are protecting our market share. And even though I understand that profitability on these bits and pieces in the account, I'm not talking about the whole account needs to be unprofitable. I'm saying there's certain things that you need to protect. And so if the system is just blindly optimizing for there's this one set thing that I must optimize for, ignore all else, those work really well in your campaigns where you're like, I just want to be profitable. My only goal here is profitability. And I'm fine if I completely lose all impressions because like that's my priority. But those, you got to be really careful with that. And so what we found is that because there's that dynamic, we just have much better control doing it our own selves. So that's kind of where, so I'm interested to see where it goes. I know they have a lot more information on, you know, just individual shopper searches than we do. And I'm really excited about like their rollouts of like those insights for non-DSP brands. So like the AMC for brands that aren't, you know, you can get access to it without having to have a DSP account, which is great. We've actually gotten that, and we've been able to like start pulling information for our accounts, which we've never had access to that before. So that's like insane. There's a whole wealth of knowledge that like Amazon's algorithms feeding in that we don't have access to, and now we do. So I know that they have far more data points than we do. The thing that I have found though is that they don't really do good, both Amazon just shopper search as well as advertising, when it comes to variations and identifying which variation works best, which variation fits well with each search, which is funny because you can actually pull AMC data and you can see, you know, when you put a whole bunch of products into an ad group and then you have like all the keywords, you're like, I don't know which product worked for which keyword. It's kind of
That's right.
Like you can actually find that out with AMC data. So I'm like, you guys have the data as to which keyword works best for which product. But what we found is that they don't always send the most traffic to that. I'm like, you have the information, you're not making the decision. So it's like, what we found is that if you know how to get the information, if you know how to do the decision making, then that's going to serve you better in terms of granular optimization. Now, the problem with that is that that's really time intensive.
Yeah.
You got to know the system and you got to know how to read the data and then make sure that you know the inputs of the system and tweak it. Like, and that's a constantly revolving process. I mean, if it wasn't, I'd be out of a job. But so it's like, I think it's the same thing with like very similar mirroring Google. It's like when everything rolled out, all the really experienced Google managers, which I am not, I know nothing. So I'm like, thank God for like AI optimizations, right? But I think somebody who really understands the system would be like, I could do way better than this. Like, stop taking away my control. Thank you, algorithm. I know what's best, right? And I think that's where we are even more so as experienced Amazon ad managers is, hey, I know how to get the results best. Please stop trying to take away my ability to tell you where I want my ads served. It's long term. We'll see how it plays out. But right now, I am interested testing. I'm not sold.
Yeah, I think the way that it needs to be looked at always when it comes to Amazon, like as much as I love Amazon, this is always in the back of my mind, which is they're out for their interest, not the seller's interest, right? We are the advocate, right? The attorney, and our medium is whatever PPC and content or whatever we do, but we are the advocate on behalf of the brand to use the platform in the way that serves the brand best. Amazon is going to do what serves them best. And that's kind of to your point about, hey, they have all this data, but they're not really using it well. Well, maybe they're not trying to use it well. Maybe they're just trying to pick whatever's going to spend more. And that's really it, right? Like everything that they've put out is just like, spend more. Here's more tools to help you spend more. And then my question is like, well, they're making money on the sale and they're making money on the ad spend, but where do they make more money? And I'm willing to say that they arguably make more. I don't know for sure because I haven't seen the stats in a long time. It used to be 50-50 roughly. But lately, I don't know. I'm starting to lean more towards they might make more on ad spend than the actual sale of the product, right? Because ad spend is just technology, whereas the sale of a product includes all of the warehousing and processing and employee payments and everything. So I think their profit on ad spend is significantly higher than when you actually sell and give them that referral commission and pick and pack fee or whatever. So, yeah, it's kind of hard to imagine a world where Amazon is going to kind of incentivize the same things that you are incentivized for. And until that alignment happens, there's probably going to be a couple of years at least of just kind of back and forth. So it's interesting to see how everybody's job will kind of change in that way. I mean, AI is disrupting every industry for sure. I think we're all just kind of, we're going to become more of engineers and managers and operators more than anything else. Like with the Google example, you're still setting the guardrails for the AI. Like
Mhm.
if you're not really being specific about what you're trying to do, the system is just gonna, it doesn't know your intent. So it's
Yeah.
just like refining intent and making it clear to the system, and just looking at the data and just like responding. So we're already getting into that as managers, and PPC has gotten more robust in that type of way. In the beginning, it was very basic, but it'll
Yeah.
just get more and more.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. I think it'll be interesting because, like, AI, or what people call AI, you can argue if it's real AI or it's not, but,
Mhm.
people have been using it in our space for software for a long time, right? And historically, I'll be honest with you, it depends on the platform. There's some good ones that set a little bit more guardrails, or some that are like, just give it to us and we'll do it for you, which that terrifies me, to be honest. Is like, hey, let the AI system make the decisions for you. There is insanely smart models of AI, and I keep saying this, but I'm like, I have no doubt the robots take over, and if and when they do, we hope they're benevolent. But up
Yeah.
until that point, like, what I found is that because there's so much context that is not available in any API. I mean, who knows? Maybe we'll get Neuralink and then we'll all run it from, then it'll have all the context. But at this point, it's like, so a classic example would be conversion rate drops for a particular product. So the ACoS goes up. ACoS went up because conversion rate dropped. And we're spending a lot on the main keyword for ranking purposes. So therefore, well, if a system says, okay, I need to optimize for ACoS, or I have these guardrails for ACoS, or whatever the case may be, it would probably start turning it down. Well, if you have a skilled account manager, not somebody following SOPs, not somebody who's like, this is a sweeping changes or whatever the case may be, but a skilled account manager who is focused and has understood context of the account, and also an integral part is context on the brand goals. So same scenario, two separate accounts. The first account, it's like profitability is our main goal here, and the client is okay with losing out on some sales volume because of profitability. So therefore, I'm going to optimize to bring the ACoS down because I know the conversion rate is down right now. Context on the second account is that we know the brand manager is like, or this account is super aggressive. And we also know that they've been trying to take up the top spot from a top competitor. And wait, we just noticed that our conversion rate dropped because our top competitor is playing games with their pricing. Historically, they've dropped, we had this one product where we're going up a competitor. They would literally drop their price like $10 for like a week, shoot up to the number one BSR, and then drop it and then pull it back up and like rinse and repeat. So like every little bit we were dealing with that. Well, it was like, we recognize that yes, we need to optimize for the new conversion rate, but if we pull back too much, we lost momentum on our main keyword, and then we had to struggle to get it back, and then they would play pricing games again. It was like a mess. So we're like, okay, we realize on this top keyword, we're going to tolerate a higher ACoS because we know we got to hold our breath for a week, and then he's going to be back to the price, right? So it's like same scenario, two different outcomes in terms of optimization. And it's like, again, until we get like a Neuralink or some sort of input into the system, or some way where we can get, because that's what one of the things, like, as humans, we do really well. We get context, we communicate, we get the nuance. There's nuance of language, like there's nuance of how somebody says something. There's nuances of, we can ask follow-up questions. AI asks some follow-up questions. There's not very many follow-up questions, and sometimes it like doesn't get what you're trying to say. So I might say like, okay, well, I need to, we absolutely must do profitability. I need to optimize for a 20% ACoS on this product because I need profitability. So when AI goes, okay, thank you, 20% ACoS profitability, I as an account manager go, okay, but there's a scenario in which we will actually lose sales And technically that will hurt the bottom line because we have less volume. So it will affect profit margins, but we also have profit dollars. So is a scenario in which we have wiggle room on ACoS because we need to protect our total ACoS, which has more of an effect on your bottom line than anything, and then just watch for profit dollars. So I can ask that follow-up question because, again, I have the context to the scenario, I understand the system, and I know how to communicate those because I've been doing it for 6 or 7 years. Where like AI, it just so I mean, like, there's insanely great systems coming out. So I think the future is bright, but again, it's not here yet. Like, we can see it coming. We're using it in certain scenarios. And don't get me wrong, AI is insanely helpful. I don't know how I live without ChatGPT.
Right.
But in terms of like allowing it to fully control all outputs, those things I'm a little bit scared of the ramifications of that.
Absolutely. We're far from there, in my opinion. Like you said, there's so many nuances that they need to be aware of. And yeah, theoretically you can train, like you can have, like, I use like Fathom Note Taker. I always think about that. Like, what if I just upload all my Fathom notes into like an AI system and train it over time to understand the context? So that context training is the key, but still it needs to be aware of a lot of data points. It needs to be aware, like, you guys are tracking competitors. Not many people are doing that, and that's a very important piece of understanding what's going on, because you're competing in a marketplace. So if you're not looking around you, you're just looking at yourself. It's like, well, why is that? Why is this? Right? So there's just a lot to be aware of, and to have that confidence that all those points are being taken into consideration, and more that we as humans can't keep in consideration. And at that point, you're like, oh well, yeah, that's a better system. But until that happens, I think we're just going to keep things on our side. Yeah, the bots are going to take over someday, if because Tesla wants to put bots into people's houses, and I think everyone's going to sign up for that, because why wouldn't you want a cleaning person and a butler? And
I told my husband, I said, I'm not ambitious enough. I don't want to be round 1 for that, because like somebody else is going to have to work out the kinks for me. I'm not that brave. I don't want it that much. But I might be round 2 or round 3. We'll see what that looks like.
It'll be more affordable with payment plans.
Yeah.
It's like you pay $500 a month and you have all the things taken care of in your home, and you can just relax.
Hey, 8 people in my house. I got a lot of laundry.
Oh man, laundry bot.
Yes.
Cool. Well, Elizabeth, this was an awesome conversation. I'm gonna wrap up here. Do you have any final comments or thoughts for 2025 that you wanted to share?
Yeah, no, I'm just super bullish and super excited of what 2025 is going to look like. I mean, every year it seems like they've been updating their ads platform a million miles a minute. It's not slowing down anytime soon. So yeah, we're just keeping an ear to the ground and going into 2025, because I'm a little bit more of like I'm functioning more like a team lead, but I want to keep myself sharp, and I've been really excited. So what I'm doing with my team internally to keep myself sharp is like identifying where somebody's getting really good results with something, pulling that out of them, saying, oh, what are you doing? Because I know enough about the ad platform to ask like those really incremental questions, and then making sure that that information is disseminated to the team, as well as like hopefully my content also gets more and more granular and more improved. I feel like I did pretty decent in 2024. It's going to get even better in 2025. So that's what I'm just excited to like, what do you say, like inadvertently explore kind of the tests through my team, because that's what we're like, the new product launch strategy we came out with, this sort of testing of like Amazon's recommended. So I feel like there's a lot of like even individual ad managers or people siloed in teams or on other people's teams who are like doing really interesting things and testing and like are really, really excited about it. But is that information dispersed and shared with, hopefully internally and also the community at large? So that's, I think, going to be my focus going into this next year.
Awesome. Amazing. Well, best of luck with that. And I appreciate all the nuggets of gold sharing on this platform. So thanks everybody for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Thanks.